Hi, you are welcome to Koyeb Ranch. In this video, we shall talk about the role of carbohydrates in ruminant animals by examining different types of carbohydrates, what happens when ruminant animals eat carbohydrates, and how carbohydrates impact on ruminant production and performance. Before I will begin, let us reflect on my previous video on ruminant animal digestive system. We've learned that ruminant animals have one stomach with four chambers or compartments, which are the rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, and the abomasum. The ruminant animal's largest stomach compartment, being the rumen, acts as a fermentation vat or biodigester. This stomach is filled with dense population of microbes such as bacteria, protozoa, and fungi to break down indigestible plant fibers like grass cellulose into three volatile fatty acids. The animal then absorbs these volatile fatty acids as its main source of energy, using them for everything from daily function to milk production. The ruminant animals provide a safe home for the microbes, and in return, the microbes convert that food into the energy the animals need to produce. That is, they work in a symbiotic relationship. So, what is carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are sugar molecules along with proteins and fats. All plants contain carbohydrates, and these provide the main energy source for the ruminant animals. There are two main types of carbohydrates that are found in feeds. These are non structural carbohydrates, which contain sugars and starches, and structural carbohydrates, which include cellulose and hemicellulose. These carbohydrates are all made up of sugar molecules, with the only difference being the chemical bond that bind them together. Let us take a closer look at more details about carbohydrates as to when they are eaten by ruminant animals such as cow, goat, or sheep, be it a forage or concentrate feeds. The carbohydrates in these feeds are broken down and fermented in the rumen by microbes to form simple sugars. The microbes then use these simple sugars as an energy source, and in doing so, produce waste products. These waste products include heat, gases, and volatile fatty acids. The volatile fatty acids and the most important waste products are used to provide the ruminant animal with energy for its vital body functions and also for the production of milk fat and milk proteins. There are three main volatile fatty acids produced when carbohydrates are digested. These are acetic, propionic, and butyric acids, or more often called acetate, propionate, and butyrate. The proportion of each of these acids depends on the type of carbohydrate that the ruminant animal has eaten, to a lesser extent in the rumen environment. If the animal has eaten a diet high in forage, such as pasture grasses or silage, This feed contain high levels of structural carbohydrates, which is cellulose and hemicellulose. The microbes that digest these structural carbohydrates produce large proportion of acetate. This acetate is absorbed through the rumen wall and passes into the liver. The acetic acid is the primary energy source for ruminants, contributing significantly to their overall energy supply for bodily function and also act as building blocks for fat synthesis to produce milk fat in the mammary gland at the lactating animals and dairy cows. The microbes that digest these structural carbohydrates are sensitive to high levels of dietary fats, acidic environment, or low pH in the rumen, and then the rumen also become too acidic when the animal eats a diet which is high in sugars and starch. If any of these occur, the growth rate of the microbes that digest carbohydrates will slow down, and the microbes itself may even be eliminated. A reduction or elimination of these microbes reduces the digestibility of feeds that are high in structural carbohydrates, such as pasture grasses. It can also reduce the animal's intake performance. If pasture grasses become poor in quality due to poor pasture management or dry conditions, there is a buildup of lignin in the pasture. Lignin acts as a natural glue binding hemicellulose and cellulose substances. Although lignin is not a carbohydrate, parts of it bind with structure of carbohydrates and makes them less accessible and harder for the microbes to digest. When the lignin content of grass is high, some of the structural carbohydrates pass through the rumen undigested and are excreted in the dung of the animal. Non-structural carbohydrates. Let's move on to look at what happens when the ruminant animal eats feed that are high in non-structural carbohydrates, which are the sugars and starches. Feeds that are high in sugars include molasses, fodder beets, sugarcane, certain fruits like mangoes, watermelons, and grapes. Feeds that are also high in starch include cereal grains such as barley, wheat, oats, maize, rice, as well as root and tuber crops such as cassava, potatoes, yam. Microbes that digest starch are different from the ones that digest structural carbohydrates. Non-structural carbohydrates primarily produce propionate as their waste product. Propionate is used to provide energy for conversion to glucose in the liver. It is important for supporting lactose and milk production. It also provides energy for animal bodily functions. It is also vital for maintaining energy balance in ruminant animals, particularly in early lactation when ruminants experience energy balance. A diet high in starch, such as cereal grains, will result in more milk volume and more milk protein. If high levels of starch are eaten, lactic acid can also be produced. The propionate and the lactic acid will reduce the pH or rumen acidity level, which is detrimental to the microbes which digest structural carbohydrates. Feeding high levels of starch in the diet, such as barley or grains, can result in the buildup of microbes in the rumen that continue to lower the rumen pH or acidity, and this can result in rumen acidosis. Butyrate and propionic acids. The digestion of carbohydrate sugars like molasses, fodder beets, and sugar beets results in the production of propionate and butyrate. Butyrate is a little different from propionate, as it is also absorbed across the rumen wall. It is converted into beta hydroxybutyrate and then moves into the liver. They are also used for fatty acid synthesis in the mammary glands and adipose tissue, and for muscle growth. Butyric acid also plays a crucial role as an energy source and a regulator of intestinal health, making it a key component in maintaining overall animal health and performance. In summary, carbohydrates are fermented in the rumen and are broken down into the same simple sugars. Different microbes use these sugars to grow and therefore produce different waste products and different volatile fatty acids. If the ruminant animal eats feed which is high in structural carbohydrate, such as pasture or soya hulls, then acetate is the primary volatile fatty acid that is produced, and this results in increase in fat synthesis and overall energy supply of bodily function. If the feed is high in starch, such as maize, grains, oats, barleys, this results in an increased propionate and subsequently increase in milk protein and milk volume. It also provides energy to support bodily functions. Feeding high levels of sugar, such as in sugar beet, fodder beets, and molasses, will result in an increase in butyrate production and subsequently provide energy for bodily functions and subsequently produce milk fat. Diets that are too high in non-structural carbohydrates, such as starch and sugars, if introduced too quickly, will also produce lactic acid, which can lower rumen pH and result in rumen acidosis. By understanding how the digestive system of the ruminant animal works and the role carbohydrate play in ruminant animals, livestock producers can better appreciate how to care for and feed ruminant animals. This is the conclusion of my video, and thank you for viewing. Bye-bye.